welcome to the latest episode of the Mostly AI Smart Pod from the editors of AI Impact Smart Brief. I'm Susan Rush, and today, along with my fellow Notbots, Michael Domingo and Victoria Martinez, we're going to be talking about AI and the fear of messing up. We have an interview with AI and workforce expert Paul Rubinstein from Visier, who will speak about that fear of messing up and how it's keeping some companies up at night and worrying about whether their AI deployments will succeed or fail. We'll also be breaking down Paul's thoughts and I'll talk with the Notbots, and Vicky will round out the episode with her 2-minute tech pulse. But first, let's jump into Last Week in AI.
I'll start with my honorable mention. This one's on Cursor. Last week, they introduced the Origin platform for code hosting. Basically, it sounded like they were doing this while kicking a man while he's down. They launched a platform when GitHub was basically kicked offline, and it actually happens quite often. In this instance, it wasn't, at least Cursor didn't say they were doing it in the absence of the king. They basically want to work in a collaborative effort with GitHub, and said they're not a replacement. They're actually when GitHub's down, you can use Origin, and then when GitHub comes back up, your work can continue. They kind of look at GitHub as more of the repository where everything's kept. So it's make sure you have backups. So my favorite story is kind of a boring one, but it has to do with data centers. Let me set the stage. There are so many stories coming about data centers being dangerous and noisy, and no one wants them in your backyard, right? But everyone needs power. What's interesting is a report came out last week that said that 3 out of 4 Americans don't want data centers built in their backyard. This comes from Heatmap News. And it might actually be getting worse, because there's another report that says that the consumption of power in the U.S. is expected to break records in this year and in 2027. And basically driven by AI use. This is a report from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And PJM Interconnection, they're the biggest grid operator in the U.S. that serves power to 1/5 of the population of this country. They're preparing a proposal to address the gap between supply and demand. Globally, data centers have increased electricity consumption by 17% in the past year, with AI-focused facilities up 50% in 2025. So next time when your power goes out, it could be you prompting Nano Banana to create a dance video with your Chihuahua tribe. So you only have yourself to blame.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Last week in our AI Impact Smart Brief, one of the things that we touched upon was energy consumption, and how it's not something that we're talking about as much. Like, people don't want the data centers, but energy consumption has been a huge topic, because that is a resource that we need to now start to think about. And I think that it's such a good touch point that you brought up today. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. I'm pro no data center.
I'm torn. So just so you know, because I run my AC all day, and I just need as much energy as possible. I'm trying to go to solar, so hopefully that'll be, ease my troubles, but who knows?
Well, and something in a more positive and fun news, this week my honorable mention, it's not exactly AI, but it also is AI. This weekend was the World's Humanoid Robot Games. I guess you could say it's definitely in the realm of AI powering, and it's like you have these AI computers are not just in computer. AI is not just in computers anymore. It's like we're taking AI and giving them bodies. So it feels like it's super interesting to see. I saw a lot of the races. The one robot that beat Usain's Bolt records is the one that apparently has a sort of slight lean when he runs, which is super funny to watch. And it even has its own name. But I don't know, looking at these games, it just makes me think of slightly terrifying reality of maybe, Ex Machina or Megan, or I don't know if you guys remember, and this might be me dating myself, but remember that movie AI, Artificial Intelligence? It was about the little boy who figures out he's AI and tries to find out where he came from. And I'm like, this is a little bit too close to home. I don't understand why we have to give them human bodies. So it's my take on that.
Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna. I was gonna originally talk about something else, but You brought up AI, that movie, and one of the saddest part of that movie was the fact that we're thinking, you're seeing this kid live like for 10,000 years, that's just a scary thought. Wow, to be lonely in the world for 10,000 years. It's like, oh my goodness. So anyways,
Yep.
Yeah, that's like Wally,
yeah.
right? He
Well,
needed to find a friend.
we'll include this in the links,
He
but
was
there is a
lonely.
whole list of movies that relate to AI, and I will go ahead and make that sure that everybody has that link. But it is actually interesting to think about how there were movies before AI was really something that we talk about daily, and it's interesting.
We should talk about our favorite AI movies next time.
Yeah, one thing about that race, I don't know if you watched it, anyone out there, but uh, at the end, the robots just slammed into the barrier, like the um, and and so my son is a racer, and I'm always amazed watching at a track meet how fast these runners can go, and then they can stop themselves without smacking into um, that wall, and all of these robots were just crumbling at the wall because they hadn't figured that out. So I guess we're not totally extinct yet. Still humans for the Olympics, I guess. But so my story that caught me some ideas, I guess, this week was, is AI, are people using AI to change the world or make it a better place? I mean, some people, yes, but most people, the answer is nah, not really. Zuckerberg may have released that manifesto with all these great things, and a lot of AI companies are trying to make some good strides. But I read an article from Graham Barlow. He's the senior editor of AI for our sister publication, Tech Radar, here at Future. And he was just talking about the 5 ways people are using AI for everyday tasks. They're not solving the problems. They're asking AI, here, I bought this at the store, help me meal plan, uh, help me pick a wine while I'm at the restaurant, even finding their next read. So I guess it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Domingo, about the data centers and the energy use. NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard, but wait, let me use AI to figure out what wine I should choose with dinner. So
To add to that, is it making a better place? I will say this: as someone who is slightly neurospicy, AI does help plan out certain things. Like if I have a huge task to do, I can set up like these are what I need to do, blah, 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 and it does help me structure. And I will say I've been looking into a lot of these applications that are, not just for neurotypical people, but as well as like just people in general who that need to get focused, or they have so many inboxes from so many places. I'm one of them. I have like 12 different inboxes. It helps me organize the inboxes. So, my parents have their own businesses. I manage their inboxes for those businesses. So it's like decluttering that, AI is definitely super helpful in that area for me. It's like, it is making it a better place for business owners.
yeah, no, I agree. Definitely is some good spots, and I think that actually brings us to our next segment here. We have an interview with Paul Rubinstein from Visier, and Domingo had a chance to talk with Paul. Domingo, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
All right. Paul, he's the chief evangelist and talent strategist at Visier. As he describes it, his role is to be a partner with chief HR officers and senior executives to connect talent strategy to business outcomes. Sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, right? But that really means they're trying to fill this skills gap, basically, with real people. So, anyways, in his role, he's been seeing the cumulative efforts of AI in the workforce, especially with AI-based layoffs and gaining speed. But he also sees a disconnect with companies not being able to get many of those AI projects off the ground. So here's an interview where we talked about that disconnect and what fear of messing up has to do with that.
I will tell you the biggest theme in my work in the last year is the simple phrase that culture, not spend, is what's going to shape a company's AI outcomes. Culture is going to make the difference between those people who find those returns and find competitive advantage through applying this and the ones who don't, right? And what do I mean by this, right? It actually has to do with what happens at the atomic level when you take something that was not digital before, and you digitize it, right? Your special know-how. When you make an agent to say, oh, I know how I'm going to handle those emails, right? Let me train my agent to handle those emails so I can go do something else. You're giving up something selflessly, right? You're basically disrupting your own value proposition in search of a higher order impact, right? And in order to do that, you have to have psychological safety. And so let's dive into that for a second. And there has to be a culture of psychological safety if we're going to get people not just to do work, but work on work. So yeah, there's a fear of messing up, and it's a huge emotion. And I just think that people are focused on the wrong messing up, the wrong mistakes. They're focused on the visible ones, right? Like a bad AI answer or a compliance slip up, right? Or some headline. A lot of people are approaching AI by governing in the edge cases, right? They're working really hard to run tiny pilots. They hand out AI like it's a gym membership and maybe you go get fit on your own or not, right? And everyone thinks this is like a expensive mistake, prevent anything bad from happening. The real expensive mistake is the quiet one. It's the fact that people are not taking a business reengineering first approach to the deployment of AI. It becomes this sort of optional individual productivity gain rather than turning around and saying, hey, how do I rethink my supply chain? Or, hey, how do I rethink the onboarding process or my sales process or my marketing process to be AI native? Not doing that is incredibly expensive.
We're looking at companies just not wanting to make a mistake and saying, okay, here's the ROI. We want you to meet this ROI, and how are you going to meet that? And by the way, make no mistakes.
Make no mistakes. In the pursuit of preventing anything bad from happening, we often cap the upside. We may limit anything amazing happening, right? And so it's interesting to watch culturally who will play not to lose versus play to win. And in a generational shift in tech, man, what a great time to play to win.
It seems like even the successes are going to be like, I guess you're going to have to do it quickly because technology is going to change again, probably.
And I think that's the notion of change. What's interesting is the companies that I see doing this really well are companies that have a culture where it's not about change management. It's a culture where they're defined by continuous improvement. It's a culture where there's the psychological safety and the incentives to constantly disrupt work. You know who's great at this? Companies that still have TQM or lean or I want to make it sexy to be a Six Sigma black belt again. Just think about this, Michael. The basic ability to break down a business process, to stop what you're doing and think about it holistically and say, oh, I can just, put a task here or two to AI and apply Claude to my daily emails. Or do I rethink the entire chain of how everything should happen? Because if you think about it, here's your job. If you were to take your job and list everything you do from, oh my God, completely uniquely human and high value, down to all the boring, repetitive, I might be able to get, Claude to do it. And you start chipping away from the bottom, right? The capabilities of AI are changing very quickly. You're right. New agents, new ways of doing things, are eating up at the bottom, or what we call bottom of license to be human tasks in a job. Now there needs to be this great shift, right? Okay, if I start cleaning out the bottom stuff, what do I do with that extra time? How do I self-actualize? I sound really corny right now. Or how do I reach up and innovate? How do I reach up and have more impact, right? And I think a lot of companies are struggling, whether that is something that is left to be an organic individual, let's see what people come up with, or they have a grand design, like a modern workforce strategy that says, these are the things I intentionally wish we did as humans, and these are the things I intentionally wish we did as agents, and let's be planful about it. That's the path to ROI. Let's start in two places here, right? First of all, everyone acknowledges it's like the open secret is we overhired a lot for a lot of years when money was cheap, especially in tech. Mm-hmm. And AI is a great, they call it AI washing. It's a great excuse to get rid of the fat that you already had, okay? Whether that's translating to actual product, I don't know, but I don't think so, right? But put that aside for a second, and let's go inside baseball. When I say capacity-constrained innovation, does that mean anything to you? Okay, here's how we used to use it in consulting. I would say, I see a team of 10, I can find a benchmark that says you should be able to do that pack of work with 8. Mm-hmm. I walk in the next day to this manager and say, hey, I'm going to lay off those 2 people because this is going to drive you to innovate, to meet the same, output with those 8 people, which is what we believe the competitors are doing. Mm-hmm. Now, there were some companies that truly re-engineered the business processes, right? But there are other companies that just worked people harder, right? And it's not like they were deploying technology. We used to write business cases sometimes for technology, especially ERP technology, to make up that gap, right, of those 2 people. And what was the payoff? How many people did you have to lay off to pay for the tech, and what was the payback period, right? That's the way it works, right? Yeah. The grand bargain for many years has been, you give me technology, I'll give you technology, you give me dollars, and those are your labor dollars that you'll pay for it with, right? Mm-hmm. That's just how, anyway, I actually believe we burned out a lot of people because we didn't have a lot of re-engineering skills. There wasn't a lot of first principles thinking when we used to shrink, right? Or when we would outsource, or when we do all these things, right? It was a lift and shift were the terms of the past. And I think now that we're in an age where we are once again going through a technology cycle that has the promise of being more productive in a way like capacity constrained innovation that shows up in the P&L, we have to look to the past. We actually have to look, like my favorite is when you think about Japanese manufacturing of automotive and American manufacturing of automotive, right? There's a period in time where both had the same access to capital, the same access to technology. One company like Toyota gave birth to lean and all these, they had quality circles. They consulted the employees at a granular level. What should you do? What should the robots do? It was an iterative process of continuous improvement, right? They taught people to dance with the robots. Other manufacturers that I won't name here right now, they threw robots at people and said, work with them, right? Mm-hmm. Figure it out. And what did you wind up with? Sabotage. You wound up with labor agreements and quality challenges that still haunt them to this day. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the way culturally Toyota approached a technology wave, gave them a multi-decade competitive advantage and quality advantage. There's something to be learned from that lesson in how we create the conditions for our employees and our companies and our leaders to unlock the power of AI beyond just answering your emails for you. AI confidence to me is understanding your operating model and knowing how it can unlock sustainable competitive advantage. It's AI confidence is the psychological safety to digitize your special sauce in pursuit, like I said before, in pursuit of spending time on something better or being able to unlock a grander, more collective gain for the company, right? Because again, right now, AI confidence, a lot of people define it as this: hey, are you using Claude? Can you make yourself more efficient? Right? Again, real confidence, organizational confidence, is being able to string those individual ability to disrupt a business process into a longer chain and unlock something that really shows up in the P&L, frees up cash and time so that it can be deployed elsewhere in a meaningful and measurable way.
Individual's perspective.
Yeah, because like if we leave it to individuals, it becomes an individual choice whether to be confident or not. Confidence that's sustained and scalable is part of culture, right? You want to like, I think people forget business is more like soccer than basketball. In basketball, you can have one superstar 8-foot player that can carry the whole team. In soccer or football, depending on where you're listening from, you're only as good as your slowest player. And so great leaders know how to unlock the whole team and raise the floor, not just have a couple of people who choose to blow through the ceiling. And so AI confidence shouldn't be looked at just on the individual level. It's got to be looked at the collective level. It's a defining characteristic. That psychological safety, that willingness to disrupt work, that willingness to have first principles thinking, that's a defining part of your culture. And man, what is it? What's this thing? Culture eats strategy for lunch?
Really?
I forget. I probably butchered that.
Oh,
I think the challenge is, what data does leadership get, right, around the workforce? And I think a lot of leaders still don't trust their workforce data. And I think leaders, like, it's not that the data they have in front of them is wrong, it's thin. And if you're a leader in this environment right now, something is missing, right? But the problem is, rather than digging in on the data, they often fall back on gut and instinct, right? What the challenge here is bringing together, like, a lot of people are like, oh, give me my HR data, give me my performance ratings, give me something, right? Give me some productivity data from IT on either token maxing or office attendance or whatever it is. Just like good AI, these leaders need context. And that means bringing together the data of people and work. This means understanding a metric that's meaningful to you, not just turnover or high performer attrition. It's understanding the levers for you of, maybe it's a certain segment of your customer base that is growing or not, or retaining or not, right? Maybe it's the way your organization is being reshaped. Enablement and learning and whatever that is for you. If you're a leader and you're trying to understand what's going on in AI, you have to, in your company, understand what's going on in your workforce, and don't just use the HRIS data alone. Think widely. It's business data. Bring it in combination together. So I keep coming back to this notion that around culture and how culture is going to determine a company's AI outcome and not its spend. You can sort of like outspend a competitor 3-to-1 on your AI, and we see a lot of expense going. But you can lose. And you can lose because you didn't build a culture like we were talking about where people are intrinsically motivated and have the confidence to disrupt their own jobs, train the agents, reimagine the work, right? If you build a culture where people are protecting their turf against AI, A, it's not healthy, and B, you're not going to unlock competitive advantage. And I think what I really want your listeners to remember is this doesn't have to be. There is this incredibly humane version where we start to redesign jobs, where we start to think intentionally about what do we really want humans to do and what drudgery should we be handing to machines. Mm-hmm. This only happens, though, if somebody steps up. And I think the biggest gap right now is the redefining of work. Like, there's no chief work officer. Work itself is a hot potato. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, the CIO needs us to redesign work in order to get the return and unlock the potential of the AI technology investment. The CHRO needs to unlock culture and needs more data and better technology to help tell the story of what's really happening so we don't rely on just gut and instinct. And are they? You find a lot of HR isn't involved in business process reengineering. Often HR will spend their time market pricing a job, right? Not redefining it. Yeah. Somebody writes a job description, let's go get someone to fill it. Like, every time a job rec opens nowadays, everybody should stop and say, first principles thinking. What should I do with this piece of capital? Do I redefine the job? Do I redefine the jobs around it? Right? Or do I just keep on doing the same thing? Inertia is a powerful force in every company, right? Because we're under pressure. We've just got to fill. We've got to meet the quota. Man, we've got to balance that short-term survival with that long-term thinking and come back to first principles approach to how work gets done. And, if you're an employee, it starts, with you. Don't always look for leaders. You are the leader, right? And you've got to speak up and help change that company and help change that revolution.
All right. Thanks, man.
Take care.
All right. We break down that interview, Susan, Vicky, and I. It's a segment called All Talk with Us Notbots. So before we start, one of the things that was cut out from the interview and something I wanted to talk about was the discussion of an old classic, the Mythical Man Month. Paul and I were talking about that and how it kind of relates to the story. It's basically Mythical Man Month, Essays on Software Engineering, which was published back in 1975. And no, I didn't read it when I was 12 years old. I did read it in my 20s as a fledgling tech journalist trying to get a handle on what to keep at top of mind for a lot of software engineers. What are they keeping? What's keeping software engineers up at night? So I keep going back to that classic, and it just reminded me every time I talk to Paul about IT workers and what's happening to them, and how they're having to re-engineer their careers. So, anyways, I thought I'd mention that. I thought I'd throw it to you for any other thoughts on the interview.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked up some info on Paul just to kind of get a little background on him, I really liked, he was described as someone who was passionate about using science and data to make talent decisions better. And I think, that's a really great use of AI. And I really loved in the chat, Domingo, when you and Paul were talking, and he's right, it really does come down to culture, right? It's not just about tasks. It's about, figuring out how the technology works with the people at the company to deliver something better, And I look, one of the favorite quotes from the interview, I'm gonna read it here. It says, you're trying to understand what's going on in AI, you have to have a company. Let me start that over. You're trying to understand what's going on in AI. You have to be in your company to understand what's going on in your workforce.
What's interesting about that too is he kind of extended a little bit on that topic at the end of the interview, talking about data, and there's just a lack of data right now. So people are having to do that with more like feeling and anecdotal information. So.
So I'm agreeing with something that Susan said. It is the culture. One of the things, it's like I feel like employees should feel empowered to use AI into their work processes, and they shouldn't have that lingering fear that they're going to get in trouble. And I think that's something that there's like a disconnect where people want us to use AI, but you're not really giving, our work companies are not giving us the exact guidelines and rules, so you don't know what you can do, what you can't do, and it's like, okay, so what's my limit on AI? And I think employees are a little bit afraid to use the tool to its capacity, to be like a partner versus, again, taking over. And I feel like it does boil down to the culture.
Yeah. I've been reading about some tools that actually will help with that. And I think that's going to be one of the keys going into the future. There's tools like RAMP and what was that other one? OpenRouter. Those are they're like consolidated, like central hubs for what tools to use. So instead of having to say, okay, I want to, I have this much to spend. Well, the tool already tells you what you can spend. So here are the tools you can use within the limits. So hopefully that helps with that. Not being fearful of having to use the technology. Basically, it's like, hey, your limits are already set. Here are the tools, and if you exceed the limits, we're gonna point you to free tools, believe it or not. So that's kind of a way around it.
Yeah, I think we're in a really exciting time. Things are just opening up for employees, for companies, and then also for people looking for the best wine.
Actually, something that you brought up, Domingo, I read, I think, an article last week that was also in our Impact Mark brief, is that in India, they are actually helping a lot of tech workers to upskill and learn more capabilities, and their skills and trajectory for their employment now is how do we use AI? So they're learning more AI in India. So that's really great for the IT workforce because they are giving this avenue to, we're not eradicating you, we're going to make you even better, and here's how you can use AI with it.
They're going to have to keep those the Indian employees employed, basically, because there's going to be a lot more work for them.
All right, so I think we should jump into my tech pulse today. All right, so actually Domingo touched upon it. There's one good update we had this week, but a lot of tools are just, this month has been nonstop. So Cursor is for coders, is the strongest editor-first choice for developers who want to create a polished IDE environment. It tracks local repositories in real time, and it allows you to generate multi-file edits directly within the sidebars. Claude, again, it's also releasing new tools this week. Claude added a built-in memory feature called Cloud Skills. It allows users to train their assistant on custom workflows and standard operating procedures. It remembers across the sessions, and then it basically works natively with Claude Cowork for executing multi-stage presentations and project drafts. So that's like a really good use, especially if working with multiple projects at the same time. Then we have, this is kind of fun, the ChatGPT Apple Message integration. This will allow ChatGPT desktop app for Mac. And once you're in the app ecosystem, it'll read your Apple messages. It'll summarize long conversations, which, we all love to summarize those conversations or voice notes. And then it can go ahead and draft replies that you can send directly from the app, but it's going to obviously require manual security. So you're not entirely deleting the person part of, the message and iMessage, but it will be a tool that can be used. So that'll be fun. We don't have that for Android, obviously, for, because it's Google Gemini, but this is a fun little partnership, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So that is my 2-minute tech pulse. And I do feel that I was under 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. Seems like you made it today. Good job, Vicki. This was a great episode. I really hope everyone enjoyed that interview with Paul. So important, just the culture in your workplace, getting over that hump of fear of messing up. So, that's our show for today. And if you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, your colleagues, and you can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget, please subscribe to AI Impact Smart Brief. Have a good one.
The Mostly AI podcast is a production of Smart Brief, a Future company.